move for one of the best wingers on the planet just hit a wall, and that wall has a name: Jose Mourinho. Arsenal have been building toward a run at Vinicius Jr. Real Madrid's own manager doesn't want to let him go. That's the standoff we're looking at. So don't sell him. Mourinho blocking Arsenal's run at Vinicius Jr. That's exactly where we start. Let's get straight into it. Arsenal have been building a case internally to go and get Vinicius Jr. And the man standing in their way isn't Real Madrid's board. It's not Florentino Perez pulling the strings from behind a desk. It's Jose Mourinho, the manager Real Madrid just brought back to the Bernabeu. And he's told his own club in no uncertain terms that Vinicius isn't going anywhere. Here's how it's laid out. Jose Mourinho has no intention of sanctioning a summer move for Vinicius Jr. to Arsenal, and the returning Real Madrid manager has made it clear to the club's hierarchy that he does not want to lose any of his most important players. That's not a vague preference. That's a manager going to his own board and drawing a line before Arsenal even get a chance to make a call. And Arsenal's interest isn't some fan fantasy or a rumor cooked up on social media. The Gunners' potential move for Vinicius Jr. looks set to be ruined before it's even begun, with Jose Mourinho poised to intervene and Arsenal hold a genuine interest in the Brazil international, whose contract at the Bernabeu expires next summer. That's the whole tension in one sentence. Arsenal want him. Mourinho doesn't want to sell him. And the contract clock is ticking in the background the entire time. Sam Wallace, reporting for The Telegraph, is the name attached to breaking this. Wallace reports that Mourinho has made his position clear to the Real Madrid hierarchy, and the Portuguese coach wants the club's leading players retained following his return to the Santiago Bernabeu. This isn't just about Vinicius either. Mourinho opposes Arsenal's move for Vinicius Jr. and wants Real Madrid to retain the Brazilian alongside Mbappe and Bellingham, with the newly appointed Madrid manager determined to build his attack around all three of them next season. So picture it from Mourinho's side. He's just walked back into a dressing room at one of the biggest clubs on earth, and the first thing he does is call a meeting about who's staying and who's going. Vinicius is at the top of the staying list. Not maybe, not let's see how preseason goes. He's told the board directly. Now flip over to Arsenal's side of this, because this isn't a passive interest either. It's gone further than people assume. Mikel Arteta is looking to put on the strongest title defense possible after ending Arsenal's 22-year wait for the Premier League crown. And Vinny Jr. has been earmarked as a potential elite signing, with the move reportedly having received approval at all levels at the Emirates. That's a green light from the top down. Ownership, football operations, the manager, everybody's already said yes internally. The only thing missing is Real Madrid picking up the phone. And that's exactly where it stalls. There have been no club-to-club talks, and there is no guarantee their initial interest materializes into a concrete offer. Arsenal have done the internal work. They haven't made the call. And now they've got a manager on the other end who's already said he'll pick up that call and shut it down before it goes anywhere. Sky Sports has confirmed the same shape of the story from their end. Arsenal are looking into a potential deal for Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. And at this point, there has been no club-to-club contact, but the interest is real. 3 separate outlets, 3 separate reporters, all landing on the same 2 facts. Arsenal are serious. Mourinho's already blocking the door. Now, why Vinicius? Why is this the name Arsenal have circled out of every attacker in world football? Because the numbers on him are absurd. The winger has won the Champions League twice with Real Madrid and has scored more than 20 goals in all competitions in each of the past 5 seasons. That's not a hot streak. That's half a decade of production at an elite level without a dip. And it's not just club form pulling Arsenal's attention. He's been doing it on the biggest stage there is too. Vinicius carried his club form into the 2026 World Cup, scoring 4 goals in 3 matches for Brazil with an average match rating of 8.40, one of the standout individual performances of the tournament. Brazil didn't go all the way. Their run ended in the round of 16, where Norway stunned Brazil 2-1 in East Rutherford, New Jersey, with Erling Haaland scoring twice in the final 11 minutes to send Norway through. But Vinicius walked out of that tournament with his stock higher than it's ever been. That's the player Arsenal are chasing. That's the player Mourinho is refusing to let go. So here's the picture as it stands right now. A returning manager, days into his new job, already drawing a line around his best attacker. A Premier League champion, fresh off ending a 22-year title drought, with internal approval to go make a run at a Ballon d'Or runner-up level winger. And in between them, silence, no talks, no contact, just one manager's word against a chasing club's ambition. That tension, Mourinho versus Arsenal, before a single phone call's even been placed, is the whole story. And it didn't come out of nowhere. To understand why Mourinho's digging in this hard, and why Arsenal think they've actually got a shot despite it, you have to go back to why Vinicius's future became a live conversation in the first place. That's where we go next. To understand why Arsenal are prepared to go up against their own transfer targets manager, you need to look at what's actually happening inside the Emirates Stadium this summer. This isn't a club randomly throwing a name around for headlines. This is a club with a specific hole to fill and a track record this summer of missing out on the players they wanted first. Start with the left flank. Arsenal have been reshaping it all summer, and not entirely by choice. Arsenal have already signed Christos Tzolis from Club Brugge in a deal worth around £34 million, as a replacement for Leandro Trossard, who has completed a move to Besiktas. So one attacking piece already walked out the door, and Tzolis came in as cover. That's not necessarily an upgrade, that's a swap. Then there's the one that really stings. The Gunners also missed out on Morgan Rogers. After Chelsea won the race for the England international, signing him from Aston Villa for £117 million. Arsenal wanted Rogers, Chelsea paid a huge fee and took him instead. That's target number one gone. And it's not just Rogers. Arsenal signed Christos Tzolis from Club Brugge for €40 million this summer, and brought in free agent goalkeeper Alain Meslier. But they also missed out on Morgan Rogers, who chose Chelsea at the last moment, while Leandro Trossard has now left for Besiktas and further sales are deemed necessary. So Arsenal are losing bodies out of that front line faster than they're replacing them with players of the same caliber. That's the backdrop. That's why a name as big as Vinicius suddenly makes sense as the answer. Look at what's actually left on the wing at the Emirates once you account for departures. Vinicius totaled 36 goal contributions in all competitions in 2025-26. Arsenal's left-wingers Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard managed 37 between them. And Martinelli is expected to depart after bagging just one league goal, while Trossard completed his move to Besiktas earlier this month. Read that again. One player nearly matched what two of Arsenal's wide players combined for, and both of those two are on their way out. That's not a want, that's a need dressed up as ambition. So who's actually pushing this from the inside? It's not just talk floating around outside the building. The report attached to it says it goes right through the club. Arsenal are exploring a move to sign Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. if he does not extend his contract in the Spanish capital, with the Brazil international figuring prominently among multiple candidates for the Premier League club. And crucially, this isn't some fringe idea floated by one outlet and ignored by everyone else. The Athletic has claimed that Arsenal have internally approved a deal for the Brazil international winger. Internal approval, that's board-level buy-in, not just a scouting report gathering dust. David Ornstein, one of the most trusted names in the business when it comes to Arsenal reporting, has put his name on this too. David Ornstein reported that Vinicius features prominently among several attacking candidates being considered by the Premier League champions. And it lines up with what Arteta's been trying to do on that flank all along. Mikel Arteta wants to strengthen the left side of his attack despite the arrival of Christos Tzolis. Tzolis was never meant to be the final answer. He was cover while the real target got sorted out. Now here's where it gets complicated and where you start to see why this isn't as simple as writing a check. Even if Mourinho weren't in the picture at all, Arsenal would still be staring down a mountain of financial obstacles. That move would still bring huge financial obstacles for Arsenal, with Vinicius reportedly earning around €470,000 per week, and set to immediately become the club's highest paid player, while the London side also want to hand new contracts to Declan Rice and Arteta. Think about what that actually means for a wage structure. You're not just adding one huge salary, you're adding it at a time when you've already got extensions on the table for your captain-in-waiting and your manager. Every one of those numbers competes with every other one. Sportsmole ran the numbers separately and landed in the same place. Vinicius is understood to earn around £400,000 per week, and matching those wages could have wider implications for Arsenal, particularly with discussions over a new contract for last season's standout performer Declan Rice also on the agenda. And that's before you even get to a transfer fee. Real Madrid aren't just going to hand over one of the best wingers on the planet for pocket change, even with the contract situation working in Arsenal's favor. Other reports floating earlier in the year had suggested numbers north of €200 million for a player of this caliber back when his future first started generating noise. That's the kind of fee that changes how a whole summer window gets planned, regardless of who's picking the team on the other side. So Arsenal's motivation isn't complicated. they lost a title race for attacking reinforcements to Chelsea. They're swapping out attackers for cheaper alternatives. And sitting right there, available in theory because of a contract standoff, is a player who on his own nearly outproduced two of their current wide options combined. Of course, they're circling him. But motivation isn't the same as opportunity, and that's exactly why Mourinho's intervention matters so much. Arsenal can want this all they like, the approval can run through every level of the building. But none of it means anything if the man picking the Real Madrid team refuses to let his best players leave. That's the wall Arsenal are running into, and to understand just how solid that wall actually is, you need to understand what's happening to Vinicius's contract situation at Real Madrid itself. Because that's the one lever that could still force Mourinho's hand. Vinicius's current deal expires on June 30, 2027, and he can negotiate a pre-contract agreement as early as January. That date matters more than almost anything else in this whole saga. Once that January window opens, any club in Europe can start talking to him directly about a free transfer. Real Madrid know it, Mourinho knows it, and Arsenal absolutely know it too. The negotiations themselves have been dragging for a long time, longer than most fans probably realize. Real Madrid and Vinicius have been in contract negotiations for more than 18 months, and discussions have resumed. The Spanish club has presented new terms, but although Vinicius is open to renewing, an agreement has not been reached. 18 months of back and forth and still nothing signed. That's not a quick misunderstanding, that's a genuine standoff. Real Madrid have tried to sweeten the pot financially. Real Madrid has pushed to lock him down long-term, reportedly offering to raise his weekly salary from around £350,000 to more than £400,000. But negotiations have stalled regardless. Money alone hasn't closed the gap. And the club's patience appears to be running thin. Vinicius Jr.'s current deal at the Santiago Bernabeu runs through June 2027, meaning he would enter the final year of his contract next summer, and Real Madrid has also warned Vinicius that failing to agree to a new deal could result in him being placed on the transfer market, rather than risk losing him for nothing as a free agent in 2027. Read that carefully because it's the key detail in this whole thing. Real Madrid themselves have floated the idea of selling him not because they want to lose him, but because losing him for free is worse than losing him for a fee. That's the opening Arsenal are banking on, not Mourinho's blessing, the club's own fear of getting nothing at all. And it's gone further than gentle nudging. According to one report, the club has effectively drawn a line in the sand of its own. The saga around Vinicius Jr. and a new contract continues, and the Real Madrid hierarchy has issued an ultimatum. They have said that there will be no more contract talks. He must accept the last offer or leave in the summer. An ultimatum from the boardroom sitting right next to a manager who's saying don't sell him. Two different parts of the same club pulling in two different directions. Other reporting backs up just how firm Real's position has become on the money side. According to sources, Madrid are not changing their latest offer and have informed the players' representatives it will not be improved, and Real Madrid are unwilling to risk him leaving on a free transfer in 2027. So there's no more room to negotiate upward. It's the number on the table or it's a farewell, and Vinicius himself hasn't exactly slammed the door on staying. Vinicius Jr. is in what one report described as a dilemma over whether to sign a new contract or leave as a free agent. In the summer of 2027, he's not digging his heels against Madrid, he's genuinely weighing it. That's a very different situation from a player who's decided he wants out and is forcing the issue. There's also a human wrinkle in all this that's been quietly circulating. Friction inside the camp that predates Mourinho's return entirely. The other detail in play is the reported tension around Vinicius and Mourinho following the Gianluca Prestiani episode last season. Now, one outlet is quick to caution against reading too much into it. That may encourage speculation, but it would be a mistake to overstate it. Dressing room friction and contract delays can unsettle a player's future, but they do not by themselves force a sale, especially when a returning manager has already drawn a line. Worth remembering that even with history between the two of them, Mourinho's public stance hasn't wavered an inch, and that's really the whole tug-of-war laid bare. On one side, you've got a club-issued ultimatum, a stalled negotiation stretching past a year and a half, and a release date getting closer by the month. On the other, you've got the actual man in the dugout saying out loud to the people who run the club that he wants this specific player standing right next to Mbappe and Bellingham next season regardless of what the ledger says. Even Real Madrid's president has been out there publicly projecting confidence that none of this ends in a departure at all, despite entering the final year of his contract at the Santiago Bernabeu. Earlier comments from Real Madrid president Florentino Perez suggest the club remains confident it can keep him, with Perez stating that Vini is one of the best players in the world and that he is delighted to be a Madrid player. That's the president talking like this. Is already settled, Mourinho talking like it's non-negotiable, in a boardroom somewhere, quietly running the numbers on what happens if a 26-year-old World Cup performer just walks for free in 11 months, so that's the contract. Peace, it's real, it's been dragging for a year and a half, and it's the only reason Arsenal think there's daylight here at all. But Arsenal aren't the only ones watching this situation. There's a long list of clubs sitting in the wings, waiting to see what happens. If Real's grip loosens even slightly, and that's the next piece of this puzzle, here's something that gets lost when you frame this purely as an Arsenal story. Arsenal are nowhere near the only club circling this situation. There's practically a queue forming, and that changes the calculation for everyone involved, including Mourinho. Start with the sheer scale of interest. Arsenal is far from alone in monitoring the situation. Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, and Liverpool have all reportedly been kept informed of developments, along with Bayern Munich and clubs in the Saudi Pro League, which has long viewed Vinicius as a potential marquee signing, though none of the Premier League clubs have submitted a formal offer. That's 6 clubs at minimum keeping tabs, some of the biggest spenders in the sport, all watching the same contract clock Arsenal are watching. One report actually narrowed it down to a specific shortlist, straight from a source close to the player. The report also stated that there are only 5 realistic clubs that can sign him: Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, and Manchester United. Arsenal are on that list, but they're one name among 5 heavyweight clubs, all of whom could plausibly match the wages and the fee if it comes to that. And it's not just passive interest either, there's been actual contact. Team Talk reported that agents for Vinicius Jr. met with Arsenal representatives regarding a potential transfer, with meetings also held with other English clubs and clubs from other countries. That's a meaningful escalation from monitoring the situation. That's representatives sitting across a table. Intermediaries have contacted Arsenal about the potential availability of Vinicius Jr. this summer, so the approach, in some sense, has come from Vinicius's side just as much as Arsenal's. That's a different dynamic than a club chasing a player who has zero interest in leaving. Manchester United's name keeps surfacing too, and with a genuinely staggering number attached to it at one point. Manchester United have reportedly been given the green light to go all in on signing Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. in 2026, with the Brazilian potentially costing around $231 million, making him one of the most expensive players ever, as his contract ends in 2027 and he is yet to sign a new deal. That's the kind of fee that would rewrite transfer history, and it shows just how seriously United were treating this even before Mourinho's block became public. But here's an interesting wrinkle. Sources inside Real Madrid itself apparently see this very differently when it comes to United specifically. ESPN's James Ali and Radra P report that not only are Arsenal interested in Vini, and that the club's interest in Diamond does indeed impact the Brazilian's future, but that real sources within the building believe that the only destination Vini could go to in 2026 is Arsenal, not their Premier League rivals Man United, meaning Arsenal are the team to worry about here. Read that twice. Sources inside Real Madrid itself have apparently pointed at Arsenal specifically as the one club they think could actually pull this off. Not United's money, not City's project, Arsenal. And there's context for why Real might even be entertaining a departure at all. They're already lining up a replacement, which tells you the club is hedging regardless of what Mourinho wants publicly. Los Blancos are already in talks to sign another winger, Yan Diamond, from RB Leipzig. You don't go shopping for a direct positional replacement unless you're at least preparing for the possibility that your current guy walks. Liverpool have also been floated as a landing spot in a much more direct way than just keeping tabs. Liverpool reached decision on signing Vinicius Jr. after Real Madrid superstar suggested to FSG, that's Liverpool's ownership group, being pitched the idea directly, which is a different level of seriousness than idle transfer gossip. There's even been chatter about Real using him as trade material rather than a straight sale. Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City are interested in the Brazilian, as are Saudi Arabian clubs, and another report the Spanish club are looking at a swap deal with Manchester City, with Vini Jr. heading to join Pep Guardiola and Los Blancos bringing in Jeremy Doku, with Florentino Perez a huge admirer of. The Belgian winger, a swap deal is a completely different kind of exit than anything Arsenal are offering, no transfer fee changing hands. Just player for player, that's a scenario Mourinho would have to weigh. Very differently than a straight cash sale to a Premier League rival. He doesn't even control, so when you zoom out Arsenal's chase for Vinicius isn't really a two-way tug of war between one club and one manager, it's Arsenal wedged in among 5 or 6 of the richest, most ambitious clubs on the planet, all circling the same contract. Expiry date, all hoping Reals resolve cracks before next summer. Mourinho isn't just blocking Arsenal, he's effectively trying to hold off every one of these suitors at once with nothing but his own word and a year left on the clock, and that brings us to where this actually stands right now, because a manager's word only carries so much weight against a contract clock that keeps ticking whether he likes it or not. So here's where all of this sits today. Mourinho has told his club in plain terms that he doesn't want to sell. Arsenal have internal approval running through every level of their building, and Vinicius himself is caught in the middle of a contract standoff that's been dragging for a year and a half with no resolution in sight. What's genuinely remarkable is how far apart the two clubs still are on even basic contact. Arsenal's interest remains at an early stage. There have been no talks between the clubs, although the possibility of signing Vinicius reportedly has approval throughout the Emirates Stadium hierarchy. No talks, zero, just one side saying yes internally and one manager on the other side already saying no before anyone's even picked up the phone. One report put it about as plainly as you can. According to the Telegraph, Jose Mourinho has returned to Madrid with a simple message for the club hierarchy: he wants his major players kept in place, and that matters because Arsenal's interest is described as genuine, and it also matters because there have been no talks between the clubs, which tells you plenty about where this stands today. That's really the tension in a nutshell. Genuine interest on one side, a firm block on the other, and in between nothing but noise. Agent meetings and a contract clock nobody controls. The most honest framing of where this sits right now probably comes down to this. For Arsenal, this leaves a familiar picture. The player is elite, the interest is real, the circumstances are complicated, and the selling club are resisting, and unless something shifts dramatically at Real Madrid, this looks like one to watch rather than one to expect. That's not Arsenal walking away, that's Arsenal watching the clock, same as everybody else on that shortlist. Because here's the thing about a manager's block, it only holds as long as the manager's authority holds, and as long as the player himself doesn't force the issue. Vinicius hasn't handed in a transfer request, he hasn't publicly said he wants out, by most accounts. He's still weighing his options, still open to extending, still not committed. Either way, that's not a player rebelling against his manager. That's player watching to see what happens next, exactly like everyone else circling this deal, and Real Madrid's own hierarchy has already shown its hand. Once the ultimatum on the table, the willingness to sell rather than lose him for nothing, the diamond talks running in parallel as a hedge. None of that disappeared just because Mourinho told the board he wants to keep his squad intact. A manager's preference and a club's contingency plan aren't the same thing, and right now both are running at once inside the same building. That's what makes this different from a simple manager says no, stories over situation. Mourinho has drawn the line, but the contract expires next summer regardless of what he wants, and the moment January arrives, any of those 5 clubs on that shortlist can start talking terms with Vinicius directly, with or without Real Madrid's permission. Mourinho can block a transfer fee, he can't block a free transfer forced by a ticking clock. TNT Sports: Jose Mourinho blocks Vinicius Jr. move. So for now, this is exactly where it sits. A returning manager has planted his flag and said his best attacker stays. A Premier League champion has quietly lined up the approval to make a run at him the moment the door opens even a crack. A dressing room in Madrid is watching a contract standoff drag into its second year with no signature on paper. And 5 or 6 of the biggest clubs in the world are all watching the same date circled on the same calendar, waiting to see whether Mourinho's word is the final say or just the opening move in a much longer fight. For now, Vinicius stays put, Arsenal keep watching, and the clock keeps running. Sources: Mourinho immediately blocks major transfer at Real Madrid. Yahoo Sports: Jose Mourinho refuses to allow Arsenal move. Football 365: Arsenal receive bad news about signing Vinicius Jr. Sports Mole: Mourinho's stance on Vinicius Jr. transfer revealed. Read Arsenal: Mourinho opposes Arsenal move for Vinicius Jr. Transfermarkt: Arsenal eye Vinicius Jr. deal amid contract dispute. Team talk: Vinicius Jr. transfer approved at all levels. The real champs: Arsenal putting Real Madrid in a scary situation. Bettors Insider Arsenal explores Vinicius Jr. transfer. Sky Sports Vinicius Jr. transfer news, Arsenal exploring deal. Athlon Sports Mourinho makes Vinny Jr. decision amid Arsenal interest. Transfer feed, Vinicius Jr. transfer from Real Madrid to Arsenal. Real Madrid transfer news, Doku, Vinicius Jr., Rudiger and more. Real Madrid transfer news, Vinicius Jr., Camavinga, Garcia, Rice and more. Real Madrid explore Vinicius Jr. swap, Liverpool's final Kane offer. Sports Mole, can Arsenal afford